Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're embarking on a totally fascinating, honestly cinematic journey into an ancient fable from the Dhammapada. We're going to explore the absolutely exhausting and destructive nature of holding a grudge. We are unlocking a profound teaching that is literally thousands of years old, but I swear it feels like it was written for us just this morning. But before we really dive into the text, let's frame things up with this incredibly powerful insight from the ancient commentary. It sets the emotional stakes for the whole story we're about to unpack. The text asks a simple but really cut-in question. With whom and with what do you fight when you are angry? And the answer? It's blunt. You fight with yourself, for you are the worst enemy of yourself. You know, holding on to anger isn't just some weapon you point at someone else. It's an active battle you're waging against your own peace of mind.
Section 1. The Cycle of Endless Enmity, Where the Grudge Began.
All right, let's travel way back in time to witness the origin of what becomes a truly terrifying cycle of vengeance. Our narrative begins pretty simply, but tragically, with two rival wives living in the exact same household. Now, the source text tells us that one wife was barren while the other was capable of having children. And, as you might guess, this inequality bred a deep, toxic jealousy. Their mutual hostility, which was completely rooted in insecurity, ends up setting this devastating cosmic wheel in motion as they begin to harbor a deep, deep hatred for one another. Moving right into Section 2, a rivalry across lifetimes, the escalation of vengeance. What makes this story so uniquely gripping is that their hatred was so intense, it actually couldn't be contained within a single lifetime. The text beautifully illustrates the bizarre, escalating momentum of their grudge, showing how they reincarnated from domestic rivals into predator and prey just over and over again. So in one life, they're a hen and a female cat. Then, in the following lifetime, they return as a doe and a leopard. And finally, their karmic entanglement brings them back together as a nobleman's daughter in the city of Savatthi and a terrifying evil spirit. The hatred literally mutates their forms, keeping them totally locked in this endless, exhausting dance of death. Unchecked enmity acts as this fiery, blinding condition. The commentary explicitly notes that a person driven to great heights of hatred doesn't observe anything, day or night. It completely blinds the mind. And that blinding rage is exactly what transformed them, finally, into a fleeing mother and a terrifying, flesh-eating spirit relentlessly hunting her down. Section 3. Sanctuary at Jetavana Monastery, the breaking point. So the tension reaches an absolute boiling point in Savatthi, where the evil spirit is relentlessly chasing the young noblewoman and her newborn baby. Desperate for survival, the terrified mother rushes into the serene sanctuary of the Jetavana Monastery. Hearing that the Buddha is giving a religious discourse, she literally flees right into the assembly. And in a final act of absolute desperation, she frantically places her infant child directly at the Buddha's feet for protection. Just take a second to imagine the chaotic contrast here, a terrified mother and a murderous spirit bursting into a perfectly peaceful, silent gathering. But then, the frantic pace finally slows down as the Buddha intervenes. He calmly brings both enemies together to expose the exhausting history of their intertwined past lives. Now, at first, the spirit is blocked from entering, but the Buddha purposely calls her in so they are face to face. He tells them all about their past trouble as rival wives, showing them that this terrifying chase is really just the latest chapter in a very long, self-inflicted history of harboring hatred. This brings us to Section 4, a timeless truth revealed, verse 5 of the Dhammapada. It's precisely in this hushed, incredibly tense moment, you have the terrified mother, the crying baby, and the furious spirit, that the Buddha delivers the philosophical payload of our explainer. Right here is the original ancient Pali text, Nahi Varana Varani, right alongside its English translation. Seeing it laid out visually like this really grounds us in the historical reality of the text, don't you think? It connects us directly to the exact ancient words spoken to break this terrible spell of hatred. Let's just let that sit on screen for a moment. The crucial point the Buddha makes here in verse 5 is that responding to malice with more malice absolutely guarantees the cycle of suffering will never end. He makes them see that hatred can only ever cause more hatred. It's like a mathematical impossibility to subtract anger by adding more anger. Section 5. The power of loving kindness, the antidote to anger. The Buddha showed these two fierce rivals that their suffering could only cease through friendship and a concept known as metta. This was literally the only door out of the maze they had built over multiple lifetimes. Metta is the ultimate medicine for cruelty. It softens the heart and forces us to overcome callous indifference by truly seeing the sorrows of others. As defined here, it is the sincere wish for the welfare and genuine happiness of all living beings, without exception. It totally replaces the impulse to harm with a friendly disposition. When we compare the two sides, it becomes starkly clear. Harboring ill will is a heavy, blinding burden that just fuels the cycle of violence. Conversely, letting go and practicing amity creates the harmonious feelings necessary for a peaceful life. And the source text tells us that harmonious feelings automatically lead to harmonious speech and action, which finally ends the vicious cycle once and for all. Now, this final test brilliantly illustrates the radical application of metta. The mother had to physically hand her baby over to her ancient enemy. Can you imagine? It's a terrifying leap of faith that finally broke their eternal cycle of vengeance. This wasn't just some nice thought experiment. She hesitated, obviously terrified, but guided by confidence in the Buddhist teaching, she actually handed the child over. Both realized their mistake, made their peace, and the curse was broken.
Section 6. Breaking your own cycle, applying metta today. So why does all of this matter to you and me today, thousands of years later? How do we take a story about an evil spirit and apply it to modern life? Well, while we aren't running from literal evil spirits, the core emotion here is entirely human. We have to actively replace our daily resentments with genuine goodwill and recognize that the people we're angry with are suffering just like us. The text reminds us that disagreements actually arise from a lack of compassion. We have to equate others to ourselves, remembering that everyone is frightened of being hurt. And most importantly, compassion has to express itself through active, wholesome actions, not just merely thinking compassionate thoughts.
Just as this beautiful, serene lotus flower rises pure and unblemished from the murky depths below it, we too can rise above the chaotic mud of our grudges and find true tranquility. We don't have to be defined by the animosity of our past. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to really reflect upon the next time you feel a grudge forming. With whom and with what do you fight when you are angry? When you hold on to hate, are you really punishing them, or are you just fighting yourself? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep this question in mind, and until next time, keep learning.